We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180. We are very, very honored to have by phone Dr. Alveda King, Pastoral Associate with Priests for Life and founder of King for America. Dr. King, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, let's take care of some business.
Well, Happy New Year to you. A mutual friend of ours and a former guest on our show who I know is listening, Elizabeth Skoglund, wanted me to say hello to you.
Hi, Elizabeth. Wonderful.
Elizabeth and I have done some work over the last 20 years in the pro-life movement. So what is Priests for Life? That's the organization you're working with. Who are they?
Well, actually, Priests for Life is a Catholic-based pro-life ministry. I think it's the largest Catholic-based pro-life ministry perhaps in the world now. I'm a non-denominational Christian. I belong to Believers Bible Christian Church, and I have an evangelistic ministry as well, and it's expressed through King for America. But I am a full-time pastoral associate with Priests for Life, and there are wonderful ministries under that. I direct African American outreach. There's the Silent No More Awareness campaign, where women and men come forth and say, we regret our abortions, and we want to help people find solutions where they don't have to go down the path that we sadly went down. But we do have victory in the Lord. And Rachel's Vineyard, a wonderful healing ministry for women and men who have been victims, secondary victims, the baby being the primary victim, but secondary victims of abortion. So through that outreach, we inform, we educate. We have a politicalresponsibility.com where we talk to people about electing people who will stand up for truth and for life. So those are some of the activities of Priests for Life. It's headed up by Father Frank Pavone, the national director. And I believe that we are a wonderful team of people. We enjoy working together for life.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you a question about your uncle, because this has been debated. Your uncle was Martin Luther King. If he were alive today, would he be pro-life?
He was a pro-life during his lifetime. Now, his wife, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, Martin was offered in 1966 the Planned Parenthood Maggie Award by Margaret Sanger. And at that time, Dr. King did not attend that ceremony. He did not write the speech. He did not go. His wife went, and people say, oh, she went in his stead. But if you'll notice, even President George W. Bush is pro-life today. And in her book, his wife, Mrs. Laura Bush, takes a pro-choice position. And so a husband and wife can have two different positions. And that is what happened during the lifetime of Martin Luther King, Jr. My father, his brother, Reverend A.D. King, another civil rights warrior, my grandfather, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., senior, Martin Luther King, Sr., Daddy King, all during his life was on guard against abortion. He told my mother not to abort me in 1950. When he found out that I had had secret abortions in the mid-'70s, he said to me, I was about to abort my son, who is an attorney now in his 30s. He says, you can't abort my great-grandchild. No. And so those are the things. His sons followed him very closely. And Martin Luther King, Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He said, don't be like the Romans who committed infanticide. These are the kinds of things. He said the Negro cannot win if he's willing to sacrifice the futures of his children for immediate personal comfort and safety. So Martin Luther King, Jr. was not a fan of Margaret Sanger. He was not pro-abortion. And I really get disturbed when people don't know that. So I thank you for asking me that question.
Well, and Dr. King, it's interesting. Margaret Sanger, who I have a lot of problems with, was no friend of the African-American community. I mean, I believe, you look at her early writings, her birth control review, and she was all for eugenics and using abortion to, quote, purify the races. And to me, and maybe this is I'll ask you this question anyways, but I thought with her books, I felt she used abortion as a form of racism.
She did. My uncle and my father, Reverend A.D. King, Martin Luther King, Jr., had a premise of a beloved community where there's a human race, not even separate races, different ethnic groups, but one human race. Margaret Sanger, buying into the lies of Satan, that there are separate races and one race is superior to another, and she was working to help eradicate that. She was a contemporary of Adolf Hitler, supposedly dated one of his lieutenants. She attended a Ku Klux Klan meeting, espousing her beliefs at one time. All of this is really true. It's documentable. I am in a what do you call it? A DVD project, MAAFA, MAAFA. 2-1 by Life Dynamics. I'm also in one called Blood Money, the Blood Money film, the pro-life version of the Blood Money film. And all of this information is documented. So genocide, the population control movement, is designed not only towards African Americans, but definitely towards African Americans, poor people, certain classes of immigrants, and all of that. And Margaret Sanger and her group, the population control gang, I call them, certainly wanted to eliminate numbers of the African American community, and through projects of sterilization and later abortion. The Negro Project was a project she supported to talk black women into getting sterilized.
Yes.
There was another Tuskegee project at one time where they gave black men syphilis and pretended to give them a cure and didn't, to see how that would reduce our numbers. So Margaret Sanger really was participating in a lot of that.
Dr. Alveda King, Pastoral Associate with Priests for Life and founder of King for America, is our guest by phone.
So, Dr. King, is there any point that you believe that an abortion would be acceptable, such as rape, or because the mother might die if she didn't have an abortion?
Well, there are so many rape children who are products of rape. There are so many rape victims who say that they are so glad that they did not abort their children, and they made the decision for life, even in the instances where they did not raise the children themselves. And so we're finding that women who are victims of rape, once they are raped, and actually, unfortunately, tragically, I have been raped in my lifetime. I did not conceive during that time. But women who, it's a very serious and terrible violation. And so you don't say to a lady who's been violated in that manner, well, you've been violated, and so we're going to do another violation to your body called abortion. It could give you breast cancer or cervical cancer and many other lasting complications, but you're going to feel better. And by the way, we're going to commit a murder in your body and kill your baby. If the woman really understands that, she doesn't want to further harm or damage herself or another human being by the act of aborting the child. But that's often not explained. And issues like incest, the people who commit the incest take the victim and make the girl get an abortion, and as soon as she's half healed, they're going back and repeating those acts. We have many testimonies of that. And so even in rape and incest, that's not. And even the question of the life of the mother, medical doctors, especially pro-life doctors, explain that with medical technology being what it is less than 1% of rape victims and the life of the mother that are impacted by the question of abortion. That numbers are so low. And in the instance of the mother's health, they can usually do procedures now to keep the baby in the mother's womb long enough to be totally viable outside the womb, and the mother's life is saved and the baby's, and that's happening more and more. But those are matters of information that we must continue to share, and that has not been done a lot.
One of the most famous non-abortions today is the Denver Bronco quarterback, Tim Tebow.
Oh, I love that story, and he's such a phenomenon. He's out running, and when he keeps getting all these touchdowns. My sons came to me the other day. My two youngest sons still living on. They're college students. They say, "Do you see what's happening with this Tim Tebow? We have to admit this is a miracle." I said, "I tried to tell you, boy." It's wonderful. There is one point I want to make. You've not asked me about that, but I want you to pray for American Heritage Girls. And that's a lady, Patty Gabrowski, I think her name is. But she has raised up that as an alternative to families, mothers and fathers, the Girl Scouts, because tragically, the Girl Scouts got a little bit off track working in partnership with Planned Parenthood on various things. I think they had a brochure out, Hot, Healthy, and Happy, and some other things that Planned Parenthood was trying to slip in by volunteering to help the Girl Scouts. They did the same thing with the Boy Scouts, and basically Boy Scouts said, you know what, we just won't have Boy Scouts. If you want to try to take us to court or something, we just won't have Boy Scouts. So they left the Boy Scouts alone, and they went after the Girl Scouts. Recently, there was a little boy who thinks he wants to be a little girl, and some family is going along with that, and he wants to be a Girl Scout. And so some of the Girl Scout chapters just said, we have to close down because the name of the organization is Girl Scouts. And so I did kind of want to mention that to have your listeners take a look at what's happening with that.
All right, I want to touch on another subject while I've got you for a few more minutes. We've got an election coming up, and one of the candidates is a very conservative individual named Rick Santorum. And you and I and Marty, we talked earlier about the difference between entitlement and empowerment. Can you sort of explain that and how it applies to Rick Santorum?
Well, what has happened with Mr. Santorum, who I like very much and have had conversations about him, and I believe I know his heart on this matter. But when he says to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, for example, and in talking about the African American issues, he would say that welfare is really not helping African American people. You don't need to keep giving people handouts. Basically, that's called entitlement. Let the government take care of me. Let me get as many checks as I can. And there are several classes of people, some African Americans, some people below the poverty level, some single mothers, different things. But and even in cases of people who are ill and infirm, when they feel they have more dignity and their sense of purpose is heightened when they can get the assistance but give something back to society. So say somebody needs a boost or a help or a hand up for a season in their lives, but they get a principle more like workfare. Okay, we're going to supplement your salary and what you're needing, but we're going to give you an opportunity to work and contribute at the same time. So that's called empowerment. Entitlement means just line up and get a check every month, and you really don't have to do anything for it. And if you want to stay home and maybe just have babies and do things like that, you don't have to use your gifts and talents to contribute to society. You just are entitled to get these handouts. But empowerment says, yes, we want to help, and we want to see you express yourself and the gifts that you can contribute to society. So let us supplement what you need while you're sharing with us the gifts that you have. And so I would like to see Mr. Santorum express his true views on empowerment. My good friend, Mr. Herman Cain, who was running for president, in his 999 proposal with his opportunity zones, that was the plan, the program that he was talking about. And so I would encourage all the candidates to take another look at opportunity zones and to see how Americans can serve and assist, even if they're expecting to be served and assisted.
Great. Dr. Kin, thank you for this time. I realize you're on a busy schedule, and we would love to have you back soon.
Well, I would love to come back, and happy New Year to you and all your listeners.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you.
We'll be back. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.